At a New Year's office party, before I arrived, my drunk wife decided to auction herself off. Who wants to spend the night with me and hear me sing? Starting bid, $1. But the moment I walked into the room, everything changed. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now let's dive into today's story. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like trapped wasps. Martin Rourke squinted at the spreadsheet on his monitor, the numbers swimming together after 12 straight hours at his desk. December 31st, the year's last gasp before the calendar reset, and everyone pretended things would be different. They wouldn't be. Martin rubbed his eyes and glanced at the office clock mounted above the cubicle dividers. 9:47. The party had started 2 hours ago in the break room downstairs. He could hear the bass thumping through the ventilation system, a dull pulse that had been his only company since everyone else clocked out at 5. He saved a spreadsheet and closed his laptop. The year-end reports could wait until tomorrow. Or never. Martin didn't care anymore. The hallway fluorescence hummed as he walked toward the elevator, his dress shoes clicking against the linoleum in an empty rhythm. His reflection caught in the darkened windows. Wrinkled shirt, tie loosened, the kind of exhaustion that sits behind the eyes. 42 years old, and he looked every day of it tonight. The party was on the 3rd floor. He could hear it before the elevator doors opened. Laughter, music with too much bass, the chaotic energy of people pretending work stress didn't exist for one night. Martin Rourke stepped out into the hall. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in that bluish corporate glow that made late nights feel even later. He loosened his tie and headed toward the break room that had been transformed with paper streamers and a folding table covered in store-bought appetizers. He was 2 hours late. The overtime hadn't been optional. End-of-year reports waited for no one. And, as the sole reliable income in his household, Martin couldn't afford to be careless with his job. Tamsin didn't work. Hadn't worked in 3 years, not since the company she'd been with folded, and she decided to take time to figure things out. That time had stretched into months, then years. The music hit him first, some pop song from 5 years ago, loud enough to rattle the cheap speakers someone had set up in the break room. Martin stepped through the doorway of the community center the company had rented out, loosening his tie. The place smelled like spilled beer and reheated appetizers from the catering trays lined up near the back wall. He scanned the room. Streamers hung from the ceiling, silver and gold for the new year. People clustered in groups, voices rising over the music. He spotted a few faces from accounting, some from sales. His boss waved from across the room, already 3 drinks in by the look of it. Martin had been in those same server rooms until almost 9, fixing a system's failure that couldn't wait. The party had started at 7. He'd changed in the office bathroom, splashed water on his face, and driven over hoping Tamsin wouldn't be too angry he was late. He scanned the room. There, near the bar. Red dress. Hair down. Her laugh carried above the music. Martin moved through the crowd. Someone handed him a beer he didn't ask for. The bass from his speakers vibrated through the rental hall's old wooden floors. Voices mixed together in that particular way drunk people talk, too loud, too fast, too certain about nothing. And then he heard it. Her voice. Tamsin's voice. Who wants to spend the night with me and hear me sing? Martin stopped mid-step. The room didn't get quieter, but everything else seemed to fade. She was standing near the bar, one hand gripping the counter for balance, the other holding a half-empty glass of something dark. Her blouse was wrinkled, her lipstick smudged at one corner. She swayed slightly, catching herself against the bar top. "Come on," she called out louder this time. Her voice carried that dangerous edge it always got after too many drinks, the pitch just a little too high, the words a little too loose. "Who wants to spend the night with me? I'll even sing for you." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone wolf whistled. Martin stood frozen near the entrance, his coat still on, car keys in his hand. He'd driven straight from the plant, worried he'd missed too much of the party already. Now he wished he'd stayed home. "Come on," Tamsin called out, her words slightly slurred. She was leaning against the bar, one hand gripping the edge for balance. Her blouse was untucked on one side. Starting bid, $1. More laughter. The kind that comes easy after too many drinks, when judgment blurs and everything feels like permission. Martin felt his stomach tighten. He recognized that laugh, the one she used when she'd had 3 drinks too many, when inhibitions dissolved and consequences felt distant. He'd heard it at their wedding reception, at birthday parties, at cookouts where the music went too late. Usually, he was there beside her, a hand on her back, a gentle reminder that it was time to head home. Tonight, he'd been filing reports while she started without him. "Come on," Tamsin said, her voice carrying across the room with that sharp edge alcohol gave it. "Who's brave enough? One night with me. I'll even sing for you." The laughter that followed wasn't kind. It was the kind that people join in on because everyone else is laughing, not because something is actually funny. Martin stood near the entrance, still wearing his coat. The fluorescent lights of the break room felt too bright. Someone had strung up silver streamers that caught the light in cheap, glittering waves. The music was too loud, some pop song from 5 years ago that nobody really liked, but everyone pretended to enjoy at parties like this. He came straight from the office upstairs. End-of-year reports. The kind that kept him at his desk until his eyes burned and his coffee went cold 3 times over. He was the senior accountant now. The promotion had come with expectations. Overtime, responsibility, being the only steady paycheck while Tamsin found herself between jobs. He'd told her he'd be late. She'd said she understood. But now, standing in the doorway of the break room turned party space, watching his wife sway near the makeshift bar with a drink in her hand and her voice too loud, he realized she hadn't understood anything at all. "Come on," Tamsin was saying, her words sliding together at the edges. "Who wants to spend the night with me?" Laughter rippled through the small crowd. Co-workers Martin recognized. Some he didn't. The music was something with a heavy bass that made the plastic cups on the table vibrate. "I'll even sing for you," Tamsin continued, raising her glass. Red wine. She'd probably had more than one. Starting bid, $1. More laughter. Phones came out. The blue-white glow of screens capturing the moment. Martin's hand tightened on the doorframe. A man near the bar. Rowan Pike from Logistics. Martin knew him vaguely. Always too friendly, always lingering too long by the coffee machine. Pulled out his wallet with exaggerated slowness. He made a show of withdrawing a single dollar bill, holding it up like a trophy. "Sold," someone called out, and the room erupted in laughter. Tamsin laughed too, threw her head back, the motion loose and uncontrolled. Rowan grinned and tucked the dollar into his shirt pocket, patting it twice. Martin moved. He didn't rush, didn't shout. He simply walked through the crowd with the same steady calm he brought to balance sheets and tax forms. People noticed him. The laughter died in patches as he passed, but he didn't acknowledge them. "Tamsin," he said when he reached her. She turned, and her smile flickered. Recognition, then something that might have been embarrassment, then defiance. "Martin," she said brightly. Too brightly. "You made it. What are you doing?" "Just having fun." She gestured with her glass, and wine sloshed dangerously close to the rim. "Relax. It's a joke." Rowan stepped closer, still grinning. "Yeah, man. Lighten up. It's New Year's." Martin looked at him. Really looked at him. Rowan's smile faded. Martin reached past Tamsin, picked up the dollar bill from the bar where it had been placed, and folded it once, creasing it sharply. He held out to Rowan. "You paid," Martin said quietly. "You deal with the consequences." He turned and walked toward the door. "Martin, wait." Tamsin's voice, suddenly smaller, followed him. He didn't wait. The hallway outside was quieter, cooler. The bass from the party was muffled through the walls. Martin walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. Behind him, the party continued. He could hear it. Laughter returning. Someone turning up the music. The elevator arrived. The doors opened. Martin stepped inside. The doors closed. When he got home, the house was dark. He turned on the kitchen light and sat at the table. The chair felt too hard. The room felt too quiet. He didn't turn on the television. Didn't pour a drink. Just sat. His phone buzzed once around 2 in the morning. "I'm safe." Martin read the message. Didn't reply. Set the phone face down on the table. He sat there until the sky outside the window turned from black to deep blue to pale gray. Trust, he thought, wasn't something you broke. It was something you threw away. The afternoon sun came through the kitchen window at a sharp angle, cutting across the table where Martin sat with his second cup of coffee. He hadn't slept, hadn't tried to. Sleep felt like surrender, and he wasn't ready for that. When he heard her car in the driveway, the familiar rattle of the old Honda, the engine that needed work, she kept saying she'd schedule. He didn't move. Just listened. Car door. Footsteps on the walkway. Keys in the lock. The front door opened slowly. Tamsin stepped inside wearing the same dress from last night, now wrinkled and stained. She'd added sunglasses even though the sun was behind the house. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. Martin, her voice was tentative. He took a sip of coffee. It had gone cold. She came into the kitchen, stopped at the doorway. I can explain. Go ahead. She flinched at his tone. Not angry, just flat. Empty. I drank too much, she started, the words coming fast. I wasn't thinking. Everyone was joking around, and it got out of hand. I didn't mean anything by it. Martin set down his cup. Where were you? At Lisa's. She lives in the complex by. Where were you? The repetition made her stop. She swallowed. I told you. Lisa's. You stayed the night at Lisa's apartment? Yes. Lisa Davis? Yes. Martin nodded slowly, picked up his phone, scrolled, found what he was looking for, and held it up so she could see the screen. It was a text from Lisa Davis, time-stamped at 11:47 p.m. the previous night. Hey, Happy New Year. Is Tamsin okay? Saw the video. Call me if you need anything. Tamsin's face went pale under her makeup. Try again, Martin said. She pulled off the sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Okay, I stayed at a hotel. Alone. The pause was half a second too long. Did you stay the night alone? I'm Martin, nothing happened. Answer the question. Rowan drove me. I was too drunk to drive, and... Did you stay the night alone? Her jaw tightened. You're being ridiculous. It wasn't like that. Martin stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. Pack a bag. What? You heard me. You're being dramatic. She laughed, but it came out wrong, nervous and high-pitched. Over a stupid joke, Martin walked to the front door and opened it. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of snow that hadn't fallen yet. Martin, this is insane. He said nothing, just stood there, holding the door. We can talk about this. I'll explain everything. I'll pack a bag, he repeated, or I'll do it for you. She stared at him like he was a stranger. Maybe he was. Maybe the version of him who would have forgiven this, who would have listened to excuses and accepted apologies, had walked out of that party and never come back. You can't just throw me out. Watch me. She stood there for a long moment, breathing hard. Then she turned and stalked toward the bedroom. Martin closed the door, went back to the kitchen, poured the cold coffee down the sink. 20 minutes later, she came back with a gym bag over her shoulder, mascara smudged where she'd been crying. This is crazy, she said. Martin didn't respond. I'm your wife. Not for long. She made a sound between a laugh and a sob. Over one mistake. No, Martin said. Over one choice. You made a choice. You stayed gone. You lied about where you were. Those were mistakes. Those were choices. I'm sorry. I know. Then why? Because sorry doesn't fix this. She wiped at her eyes, smearing the mascara worse. Where am I supposed to go? Call Lisa, or Rowan, or whoever you want. That's not my problem anymore. You're being cruel. No, I'm being done. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I'll call my sister. Good. She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. You're throwing away 8 years. You threw it away first, Martin said. I'm just taking out the trash. Her face crumpled. She yanked open the door and left. Martin watched through the window as she got in her car. She sat there for a while, probably crying, probably waiting to see if he'd come after her. He didn't. Eventually, she started the engine and drove away. The house was quiet again. Martin went to the bedroom. Her side of the closet was half empty, hangers pushed together in a jumble. She'd taken clothes, but left most of her shoes. Had grabbed random items without thinking it through. He started pulling out the rest. Dresses, sweaters, the expensive coat she'd bought last winter that they couldn't really afford. Shoes in pairs, some she hadn't worn in months. Makeup from the bathroom, shampoo bottles, the electric toothbrush. It all went into black garbage bags. By the time the sun started to set, he had 6 bags lined up on the curb. He could see Mrs. Kowalski from across the street, watching from her window, the curtain pulled back just enough. Let her watch. He went back inside and started on the photos. The framed wedding picture from the mantel. The vacation shots from Florida. The stupid selfies she'd printed and put in cheap frames because she said it made the house feel lived in. All of it. Into bags. Onto the curb. His phone started buzzing around 7. Tamsin's sister. He didn't answer. Tamsin's mother. He declined to call. Text messages piled up. What did you do? She's devastated. How could you be so heartless? Over a joke? Martin turned off his phone. There was a knock at the door around 8. He looked through the peephole. Tamsin, standing on the porch with her arms wrapped around herself. No coat, just the same wrinkled dress. He opened the door, but didn't unlatch the screen. I have nowhere to go, she said. Call Rowan. Martin, please. I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. You'll leave. This is my home, too. Your name's not on the deed. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't. Already called a lawyer. You have until Monday to get your things off the curb before they go to Goodwill. You're throwing away our marriage. No, Martin said. You auctioned it. I'm just closing the sale. He shut the door. She pounded on it. Martin, open the door. He walked away, into the kitchen, and turned on the television loud enough to drown her out. After 10 minutes, the pounding stopped. After 20 minutes, he heard her car start. He turned off the television and looked around the house. It felt bigger without her things. Emptier, yes, but also cleaner. Like removing clutter he'd gotten used to seeing. His phone buzzed where he'd left it on the kitchen counter. He turned it back on out of habit. A text from an unknown number. This is wrong. Another from Tamsin's sister. She made one mistake, and you're destroying her. Another. You never loved her. Martin deleted them without responding. Then he saw the one from Tamsin herself, sent just minutes ago. Everyone will know what you did. He set the phone down. Let them know. Truth didn't need a defense. It just needed patience. The next few days unfolded exactly as he'd expected. Tamsin's side of the story spread like fire through dry grass. Social media posts about being thrown out for a joke. Calls to mutual friends painting Martin as controlling, vindictive, heartless. Martin went to work, came home, ate simple meals, slept in the center of the bed instead of his side. He saved everything. Screenshots of her posts before she could delete them. Recordings of voicemails where her story changed. The guest list from the party. Names of people who'd been there, who'd seen. He called a locksmith. Changed the locks. He called his lawyer again. Drafted a separation agreement. And he waited. Because people like Tamsin, people who lived in stories they told themselves, they always tripped over their own lies eventually. Always added details that didn't match. Always forgot what they'd said to whom. All Martin had to do was wait. And document. His phone rang on Thursday. Unknown number. He answered on the third ring. Mr. Rourke? A woman's voice, professional. This is Jennifer Haynes. I'm an attorney representing your wife in the matter of your separation. She hired a lawyer? She did. We'd like to discuss terms. I already submitted terms. Yes, we received those. Mrs. Rourke finds them unacceptable. Martin almost smiled. I'm sure she does. She's willing to seek counseling if you are. She believes this marriage can be saved. It can't. Mr. Rourke, marriages survive infidelity all the time. If you're both willing to work. I'm not. Silence on the other end. Then, may I ask why you're so certain? Because I don't forgive people who auction themselves for $1 and then lie about where they spent the night. She's expressed remorse. Good for her. Mr. Rourke, tell your client she has until Monday to collect her belongings. After that, I'm donating them. That's not. He hung up. That night, Tamsin posted again. A long, tearful explanation about how she'd made a mistake, how everyone makes mistakes, how marriage should be about forgiveness. The comments were predictably supportive. Stay strong. He doesn't deserve you. Men can't handle strong women. Martin took a screenshot, added it to his folder. Friday morning, his lawyer called. Martin, we need to talk about your approach here. What about it? You're backing her into a corner. People do desperate things when they're cornered. Let her. That's not smart. It's honest. His lawyer sighed. Fine. But when she files, and she will file, it's going to get ugly. Good, Martin said. I have everything documented. You're sure about this? Yes. No chance you want to reconsider? Try mediation? None. All right, I'll prepare the defense. Martin went back to work, finished the quarterly reports, attended meetings, acted like nothing was wrong. Because nothing was wrong. He'd simply stopped pretending. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. Martin sat on a bench in the hallway outside Family Court 3, his lawyer beside him reviewing documents. Across the hall, Tamsin sat with her attorney, a woman in a gray suit who kept leaning in to whisper things that made Tamsin nod vigorously. It had been 6 weeks since New Year's. 6 weeks of Tamsin's family calling him a monster. 6 weeks of social media posts painting him as abusive. 6 weeks of carefully worded text messages from mutual friends trying to get both sides. He'd given them nothing. Now it was February, and the hearing was about to start. Remember, his lawyer, Thomas Brennan, said quietly, "Let me do the talking. Only answer direct questions from the judge. Keep your answers short and factual." "I know, and don't let her get under your skin." Martin looked at him. "She's already under my skin. That's why we're here." Thomas gave him a look that might have been respect or concern. Maybe both. The door opened. A bailiff stepped out. Rourke versus Rourke. They stood. The courtroom was smaller than Martin had expected. Wood paneling that had gone dark with age, a judge's bench that seemed too large for the room, fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly. Half a dozen benches for observers, most of them empty. Judge Patricia Carlisle entered from a side door. She was in her late 50s, gray hair pulled back severely, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She sat, arranged papers, and looked up. "We're here for preliminary proceedings in the matter of Rourke versus Rourke, petition for dissolution of marriage. Mrs. Rourke is the petitioner. Mr. Rourke is the respondent." She glanced between them. "This is going to take longer than anyone wants, so let's try to be civil." Tamsin's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, Jennifer Haynes, representing Mrs. Rourke. We're here today to establish temporary orders regarding property division and support." The judge nodded. "I've reviewed the initial filings. Mrs. Haynes, your client is seeking exclusive use of the marital home and temporary spousal support. Mr. Brennan, your client is contesting both. Is that correct?" Thomas stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Rourke owns the home independently. It was purchased before the marriage, and Mrs. Rourke's name was never added to the deed. Furthermore, Mrs. Rourke is employable and chose not to work. There's no basis for support." Jennifer Haynes jumped back in. "Your Honor, Mrs. Rourke left her career to support her husband's advancement. She has been out of the workforce for 3 years and cannot immediately secure employment. She has nowhere to live. Mr. Rourke changed the locks on their home and disposed of her personal property without notice. Is that true?" Judge Carlisle looked at Martin. "Some of it," Martin said. "Mr. Rourke." Thomas's voice was low, warning. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Some of it." Martin kept his voice even. "The house is mine. I bought it 2 years before we married. She never contributed to the mortgage. I changed the locks after she didn't come home one night. And I put her belongings on the curb. I didn't dispose of them. She had 4 days to collect them. Did she collect them? Some. Her sister took the rest." Judge Carlisle wrote something down. "Mrs. Rourke, you're claiming you had nowhere to go." Tamsin stood. She dressed carefully for this. Conservative blue dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back. She looked small, vulnerable. "Yes, Your Honor. I stayed with my sister temporarily, but she has a small apartment. I've been sleeping on her couch. I have no income. My husband threw me out without warning." "Without warning?" Martin said. "Mr. Rourke." The judge's voice was sharp. "You'll have your turn." He sat back. Jennifer Haynes continued. "Your Honor, this separation happened because of a misunderstanding. Mrs. Rourke attended a New Year's party where she made a joke that her husband took the wrong way. He refused to discuss it. He forced her out, and now he's trying to leave her with nothing." "That's not what happened," Martin said quietly. Judge Carlisle looked at him. "Then what had happened?" Thomas stood quickly. "Your Honor, if I may, I want to hear it from him." Martin stood. "She told a room full of people in my office party that they could spend the night with her for $1. A coworker paid. She didn't come home. When she finally did come home, she lied about where she'd been. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice." The courtroom went very quiet. Tamsin's face flushed. It was a joke. Mrs. Rourke, you'll have your turn, the judge said. She looked at Martin. Do you have evidence of this? Thomas stepped forward with a folder. Your Honor, we have multiple witness statements from attendees at the party. We have text messages. We have time-stamped social media posts. And we have a voicemail Mrs. Rourke left for Mr. Rourke that night. A voicemail? Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to hear it. Thomas pulled out his phone, queued up the file, and set it on the table. The courtroom was silent as he pressed play. Tamsin's voice filled the room, slightly slurred, too loud. Martin, seriously relax. You're making this into something it's not. I'm fine. Rowan's fine. We're just having fun. It's not cheating if someone paid for it, right? That makes it like professional. Laughter in the background. Anyway, I'll be home when I'm home. Stop being such a tight ass. The recording ended. Tamsin was crying, quiet tears running down her face, ruining the carefully applied makeup. Jennifer Haynes looked like she'd been punched. Judge Carlisle took off her reading glasses. Mrs. Haynes, were you aware of this recording? No, Your Honor. Mrs. Rourke, is that your voice? Tamsin nodded, unable to speak. I need a verbal response. Yes. Barely a whisper. The judge made note. Put her glasses back on. Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Rourke retains exclusive use of the marital home. Mrs. Rourke, you have 30 days to find other accommodation. As for spousal support, Mrs. Rourke, you worked before the marriage. Yes, Your Honor. Tamsin's voice was thick with tears. In what capacity? Office manager. And you left that position when? 3 years ago. What? Silence. Mrs. Rourke, I wanted to focus on other things, such as personal projects. Did those projects generate income? No. Judge Carlisle flipped through papers. I see you have a bachelor's degree in business administration. You're 32 years old, in good health, with no dependents. Is there a medical reason you cannot work? No, but then I see no basis for spousal support at this time. Mrs. Haynes, if your client's circumstances change significantly, you may petition for reconsideration. But based on what I've seen today, this appears to be a short-term marriage ending due to Mrs. Rourke's own actions. There's no evidence of Mr. Rourke's misconduct. Your Honor, Jennifer started, but the judge raised a hand. We're done here. I'll have written orders within 48 hours. Mr. Brennan, file your counterpetition. We'll schedule mediation for, she checked a calendar, March 15th. If you can't reach an agreement by then, we'll schedule a full hearing. She stood. Court is adjourned. Everyone rose as she left. In the hallway, Tamsin approached him. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she pulled away. You didn't have to do that, she said. Mascara streaked down her face. You didn't have to humiliate me. Martin looked at her. I didn't do anything. I told the truth. You destroyed me. No, I stepped aside and let your choices destroy you. There's a difference. I loved you. You loved what I provided. There's a difference with that, too. She stared at him like she was seeing someone she'd never met. You're not the man I married. Maybe not, Martin said. But I'm not the fool you thought I was either. He turned and walked away. Thomas caught up with him at the elevator. That went better than expected. Did it? Martin, you just kept your house and avoided alimony. Yes, it went well. The elevator arrived. They stepped in. She'll appeal, Thomas said. Or tried to. But based on that voicemail and the witnesses, she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Good. You really recorded that call. Voicemail saves automatically. Lucky you. Luck had nothing to do with it. The elevator descended. Thomas glanced at him. You all right? Fine. You don't look fine. I said I'm fine. They reached the ground floor. The doors opened. One more thing, Thomas said as they walked toward the exit. She's going to keep trying to paint you as the bad guy. You need to be prepared for that. I am. No, I mean really prepared. She's going to call you things. Her friends are going to call you things. People you thought were on your side are going to start asking questions. Martin pushed open the door. Cold February air hit them. Let them. You're sure about this? About going scorched earth? I'm not going scorched earth. I'm just refusing to lie down. Thomas nodded. All right. I'll call you when the written orders come through. Martin walked to his car, got in, sat there for a minute with his hands on the wheel. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. I hope you're happy. He deleted it. Another text, this one from Tamsin's sister. You're a monster. Delete. Another. Everyone knows what you did. Delete. He started the car and drove home. The house was quiet when he got there. Clean. Orderly. Everything in its place. He made dinner. Chicken breast, rice, steamed vegetables. Ate at the kitchen table while reading a book. Washed the dishes. Took out the trash. Normal. Routine. Like nothing had happened. Because in a way, nothing had. The marriage had been dead since New Year's. Today had just made it official. He slept well that night. The mediation in March was brief and productive, at least from Martin's perspective. Tamsin had a new lawyer by then, the third one. The first had dropped her after the courthouse recording. The second had lasted 2 weeks before scheduling conflicts made continuing impossible. The new lawyer was younger, less polished, probably desperate for clients. They met in a conference room at the courthouse. A mediator, an older man named Douglas who looked tired before they even started, sat at the head of the table. Let's keep this simple, Douglas said. The court has issued preliminary orders. Today we're trying to reach a final settlement, so we can avoid a lengthy trial. Mrs. Rourke, your current attorney has submitted a revised proposal. Do you want to speak to that? Tamsin's lawyer, a man in his 30s whose suit didn't quite fit, cleared his throat. Yes, we're seeking a division of marital assets accumulated during the marriage. Bank accounts, retirement contributions, and household items. We've abandoned the request for spousal support and for the house. How generous, Martin said. Mr. Rourke, Douglas warned. Thomas laid out papers. Here's our counter. Mrs. Rourke receives her personal items, which she's already collected. Each party keeps their own vehicle. Each party keeps their own bank accounts. The retirement account remains with Mr. Rourke. It was started before the marriage, and Mrs. Rourke never contributed. That's not fair, Tamsin said. I supported his career. By doing what? Martin asked. Not working. I managed the household. You watched television and met friends for lunch. Mr. Rourke. Douglas's voice was firmer now. Thomas put a hand on Martin's arm. What my client means is that Mrs. Rourke had no employment during the marriage by choice, not necessity. She contributed nothing to household income. The retirement account appreciated due to Mr. Rourke's salary and contributions. They argued for 2 hours. Back and forth, Tamsin crying periodically, her lawyer making increasingly desperate proposals. Thomas shutting each one down with facts, dates, documentation. Finally, Douglas called a break. In the hallway, Thomas said, they're going to accept your terms. How do you know? Because they have nothing. No case, no leverage, no documentation of their own. She wants this over. He was right. When they reconvened, Tamsin's lawyer conferred with her in whispers. And then, we accept Mr. Rourke's proposal. Good, Douglas said. He sounded relieved. I'll draft the settlement agreement. You'll both need to sign. Barring any issues, the divorce will be final in 60 days. Tamsin looked across the table at Martin. Her eyes were red, exhausted. Was it worth it? Was what worth it? This, all of this, destroying everything we had. Martin met her gaze. I didn't destroy anything. You did that on New Year's Eve. It was one mistake. It was a choice. You chose to make that joke. You chose to leave with him. You chose to lie about it. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices. And choices have consequences. I hope you're happy, she said. I am. She flinched. Not happy you're hurt, Martin clarified. But happy I'm free. They signed the papers in silence. Walking out of the courthouse for the last time, Thomas clapped him on the shoulder. You did good. I did what I had to. Most people cave. They feel guilty. They negotiate. You didn't. Should I have? No. You stood your ground. That takes guts. Martin got in his car and drove home. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The neighborhood was quiet. He pulled into the driveway, sat for a moment looking at the house. His house. No one else's name on the deed. No one else's belongings scattered around. No one else's drama seeping into every corner. Just his. Inside, he opened the windows. Spring air, still cool, but without winter's bite, drifted through. He cleaned out the garage, finding old boxes of things he'd forgotten about. High school yearbooks, college textbooks, photos from before Tamsin. A whole life he'd put on hold. He donated what he didn't need, organized what he did, made the space his own. Over the next few weeks, he heard less and less from Tamsin's camp. The social media posts stopped. The angry texts from her family dwindled. The mutual friends who'd chosen sides went quiet. Life moved on. Martin went to work, came home, sometimes went out with actual friends, the ones who'd stuck around, who'd never believed Tamsin's version of events. He started running in the mornings, something he'd stopped doing years ago. Started cooking properly instead of just reheating things. The divorce became final on a Tuesday in April. He received the notification by mail. A single page. Official stamps. It was over. He filed it in a cabinet and went about his day. That evening, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello. Martin? It's Lisa. Lisa Davis. He remembered her. Tamsin's friend from the complex. The one whose apartment had supposedly been where Tamsin stayed. What do you want? I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For not speaking up sooner. I knew she wasn't with me that night. She asked me to lie if you called. I should have told you. Martin was quiet. I just thought. I don't know what I thought. That it wasn't my business. That you two would work it out. But after everything that happened, I felt like I should at least apologize. Okay. That's it? Just okay. What do you want me to say? I don't know. That you forgive me? That you understand? I understand, Martin said. But I don't forgive you. You chose to lie. That's on you. I was trying to be a good friend. You were enabling a bad decision. Silence on the other end. Then, you're right. I'm sorry. I know. Are you okay? I'm fine. Tamsin's not. She's living with her mom now. Barely leaves the house. That's not my problem. You really don't care? No, Martin said. I don't. She made her choices. I made mine. We're both living with them. That's cold. Maybe. But it's honest. Lisa hung up. Martin set the phone down and looked around the living room. Everything was in place. Clean. Quiet. Peaceful. He thought about that night at the party. About the laughter. About Tamsin holding up her glass, making her joke, throwing away 8 years like it meant nothing. He thought about the moment he'd handed the dollar back to Rowan, the moment he decided he was done. Some people might call what he did ruthless, unforgiving, cruel, but they hadn't been there. They hadn't heard her voice on that recording, laughing about how it wasn't cheating if someone paid. They hadn't watched her lie, spin stories, play the victim while painting him as the villain. They hadn't lived through it. Martin had, and he'd chosen not to be a victim, not to be a fool, not to be someone who accepted less than he deserved because it was easier than standing alone. He'd chosen himself, and that, he thought, was the only choice that mattered. Months passed. Summer came. Harrison Creek sweltered under July heat. Martin got a promotion at work, senior director now, a corner office, better pay. He bought new furniture for the house, repainted the bedroom, threw out the last few things that reminded him of her. One Saturday morning in early August, he was cleaning out the garage when he found it, a crumpled dollar bill wedged between 2 boxes, dusty and forgotten. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he walked to the kitchen, pulled out the trash bin, and dropped it in. Some prices are paid once. Some debts never come back. He tied up the trash bag and carried it to the curb. The sun was bright, the air was clear, and for the first time in a long time, Martin felt like everything was exactly where it should be. He went inside, poured himself a cup of coffee, and sat on the back deck, watching the morning unfold. The house behind him was quiet. His house, his life, his choice, and that, he thought, was worth more than all the reconciliation in the world.